So I'm going to try to talk through this Pentominous puzzle from Murat. It had a pretty incredible theme with just these few Roman numeral clues in it, and for at least for some solvers it will seem, where the heck do I get started? One of the things I'll do with a puzzle like this is just try to find for myself the most constrained or minimal clues that don't have many options, and so I can see just by eye about 6 or more choices for that L. I can see a fair number of choices for the X. Similarly, like this has nothing around it. There are two clues that always jump out at me in these puzzles, and I is one of them, and that's because it's got to be straight and long, and that really divides the grid pretty quickly. For instance, if this I comes straight down, it's going to put an I right next to it, and we know that's not allowed, so I expect most people quickly see that. The other I is really where the puzzle starts, from my experience. And one of its the ways to do that is to see that there's a big consequence if it's horizontal. If it's horizontal, it takes these 5 cells, and what that leaves is now a channel beneath it, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just below the I, 6, and honestly the 7th that have to be dealt with. And so all of these have to be part of some other pentomino. Specifically, and I'm solving this in pen today, specifically if this cell here is used and this I comes straight across, it can't escape to the right, it has to escape to the left, which makes an L as a necessary pentomino. And so you're left here with these cells. It could come up like a V, but that's going to have 2 V's touch. It could come over here, but it's going to make another L. Forces either 2 L's or 2 I's to touch that. Unfortunately, making this long horizontal channel underneath this clue just doesn't allow any solutions to happen, and so it'll feel maybe a little like trial and error, but you can visualize in your head, if you get a little more practice in these things, that this I must also go up and down. And we don't yet know if it takes this cell or that cell, just as we don't know if the top one takes the left or right cell. But these are the first 2 marks you can make in the puzzle. And now you just want to continue to follow where you've made progress to say what's now very limiting. This V used to have some escape options. You could do something like this, and the V could come out over here. Now it's got to be the case if this is part of a horizontal and vertical stretch of 3. The V's have to be the same clue, and it's going to either take 2 cells here or 2 cells there. And which is it? Well, the first way to get at this is to see immediately that if it takes these bottom ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells, it's going to have to take this whole stretch. That's another I, and it's touching that I. That honestly, look for the case that's the most limiting and just explore that it's going to fail. That works all the time in this puzzle, and so in this case we know the bottom one. It's not an option, so it takes the top. We have 6 cells in this corner. The 6th one has to escape, so a P sits right there. These 4 cells must be connected. That means the I has to be up to the top like this. This can't be another I shape, so we put in an L. Still very open on the side, so obviously the next place to come is up here. This X can extend to the right. If it did, it would make this shape, so the X has to be exactly part of this shape. That gives another P. Now we have to think about what is necessarily included in the next pentomino. If this cell isn't available, the set of 5 cells to take is another P. And this is one of the cool kinds of steps this puzzle shows a lot, which is that looking successively at 5 or 6 of the next cells to take, can you avoid the same shape? To do that, this has to be part of the pentomino. It forms a Y. You get the I coming out. Again, this is still far too open on the left side, so the next place to work is over here. One of the things I'll do in this puzzle all the time is just think about the consequences of a cell not connecting. So let's say this cell was not part of that pentomino. Then it's also going to take this cell, and so these cells are taken. This has to come and extend and be an I. That's no good. So you can quickly say that that must connect down. Now you say, well, which of the two remain? Well, never forget the space you're around. We have a Y pentomino here. That cell being taken would make another Y, so this has to become an N. Now we're actually starting to encroach on the X, and so where we used to have, for instance, this option to the top or this option to the right, we now have just one option left, which is this one that comes down. So we'll put that in. That gives us these three cells, in addition to this one we already had for this next pentomino. It's going to be a Y or an F. The L originally had lots of choices, like this, or this, or this, or any of these. We now need to somehow fit a 4 long space in it, and you'll see it's not horizontal, so this L needs to have 4 in a vertical way. The vertical piece is not part of the clue, so this is the single cell that's in the row next to the group of 4. So it's got to come over and come down. That's now the only L that's possible. And this is going to get us back into a counting mode for cells in these corners. This has 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to take 5. We've got a block of 6. This cell on the lower right, which is the only exit out, is going to have to be part of its own pentomino. So we have a pentomino starting over here. This is taking one or either of these two cells. So we know that this is the start of these shapes, and the question is, how do you get unique pentominoes in the space? Well, if this became a Y and that became a Y, that's no go, so we get a P and an F. We have a pentomino that's going to grow out here, we have a pentomino that's going to grow out here. It's not part of the X. So what is the X? Well, the X has to extend down. It can't extend left. That's going to need to be that shape. Extending right needs to be that shape, so it has to be this X. One of the things that's easy to just do in a puzzle like this is forget what you're around. When I first solved this, I got stuck here because I didn't know exactly which would have to be. I'm sitting right near an L, so let's not forget that. We're making potentially another L. Here we have a case where this can be an I or an L. Whatever it takes, there's going to be another pentomino that starts here and grows up. And you'll see that in this space there are about 15 cells left, and so what we need to figure out is how to fill these. We can do that slowly by taking cells that probably have to belong to one of the ones we've identified. If I call this group A, B, and C, this cell can't belong to A, it's too far away. It can't belong to this because it would make another I next to an I, so that cell is part of this one. Let's think about, say, this cell. This cell can't be part of A. If it is, B comes down, makes this shape, and strands a cell right there, so we can make a link like that. What's next? We can think about, say, this cell. Is this cell part of this group? Well, this group is gaining one more from below, so it's at 4. It can't reach up to here. It can't be from the left. That would make a stranded group, so we know that has to be here. So this is going to become a P or a Y. Is either of those acceptable? They're both acceptable, looks like right now. Let's look at this cell. This cell can't join to this group because, again, it's already taking 3 plus 1. It can't join to that group, it's too full. It's got to be from this. Excuse me, so this is going to form an F or a W. And then we have this last consideration down here. So what kind of shape do we want this to be? For instance, if this is the F sitting here, this forming a Y, this can form another Y or another F, but we have now connected the same letter with one of those two choices. So let me do that again for you. If this is an F, this is a Y. So this shape here, which has the start of a T, takes either another cell for a Y or another cell for an F. That causes a real problem. So you can say clearly is that there's a W and a P. This comes in. It doesn't want to duplicate a W. It comes down. Makes an L. This would have been easier in pencil, but I just wanted to show you that the kinds of trials that you need to solve a puzzle like this, you can keep in your head generally. Always look for clues that are quite limiting, and I find great success in just slowly, when I've divided a space like the center space, which had 15 cells, slowly figuring out which, if any, of the pentominoes I'm starting to grow out are ones that that cell can come to. And so the way we slowly chipped away at the center is a kind of step that may be new to you, but worked really well in this puzzle. Thank Murat for sending it. Hope you learned something. We'll see you again soon.